Little sigh. How's it going, everybody? Welcome back. I'm Carpo. I'm going to be your host for this discussion about enlightenment. Now, before you say, well, how do you know what enlightenment is? I will say I don't. Because in order for me to talk about enlightenment, I first have to tell you what enlightenment is not. But first, I'd like to thank today's video sponsor, your mom. Your mom's pretty cool, and you should definitely give her a call. So, to continue on with this discussion, we're going to talk about enlightenment. This little book right here, The Tree of Life on it, nice leather-bound journal that I've, written and drawn in for years now. I like to keep notes. I like to take notes of the thoughts I have, and some of these notes gather over the years. I'll go back and reread my journal and add a few notes to kind of reiterate or maybe reformulate or rethink what I once thought. And it's a fascinating way for me to process the thoughts that I have on a daily basis and see where I was, just like my YouTube videos are sort of a video journal. And I wrote this list of, I guess there's 13 of them in here. And let's just flip to the page. And it's 10 rules to enlightenment. However, I added a few more on the next page because ultimately it's an ongoing process. Let me tell you first, as I was going to say, what enlightenment isn't. It's not a thing. In other words, it's not a particular state of mind, it's not a particular idea, nor is it monopolized by one specific group of people. Often when people speak about enlightenment, they think of people in the East, folks who have excuse me, folks who may have read the Hindu texts or have a certain, belief system, or Buddhists. But honestly, they just basically discovered they have their own way of describing the same feeling many people have had. It could be elation at a concert or in prayer or skydiving. For everybody it's different. But enlightenment itself is not something that is universal for each individual. It's catered to each specific person and the region they live in and what they need to survive. So, with that out of the way, I'm going to read the 10 rules to enlightenment and expound a little bit on each one. And of course, these are just my thoughts. And number 1, there is no destination. Awareness grows like a tree and cannot be rushed. I think that's pretty self-explanatory, but I like to compare things to the slow growth of nature. You can't force a tree to grow quickly. You can give it certain growth hormones and nutrients, but then it might make it more liable to get diseases or less pest resistance. If it grows long and strong in the proper setting, it can learn from the other trees in the environment. And yes, trees do share information. So in the sense that we tend to seek a destination for enlightenment, such as when you achieve this, you're going to know what you need to know to be enlightened. Honestly, it's not a tree. I guess that would also include the death of that tree, the collapse of that tree, and the new tree growing out from it. The way our thoughts grow and continually change. It may be a new tree, it might look the same, but it's slightly different. So ultimately, it's something that we build upon, not something we achieve. Aha, I've hit the level of enlightenment. Number 2, one should always retain humor. Take nothing too seriously and embrace negativity, which is mentioned on another part, so I won't go into the negativity part, but the retaining humor thing, it's okay to get angry. It's okay to get frustrated. Emotional intelligence is perhaps one of the most important things that we could have. However, if you can't laugh, if you find yourself unable to find things humorous, you might want to get that checked out because there's something lacking. Everyone should be able to find humor in something in their life, and if not, then perhaps there's something that needs to be worked out to achieve that. But humor must be in place for a person to develop any sort of enlightenment whatsoever. Number 3, each reality is unique, and therefore each enlightenment varies widely. And I won't expound on that because I already did at the beginning, obviously. There is no one definition. Number 4, the process is not constructive. It is destructive. So be prepared to tear down walls, and it can be painful. I think that this is a very crucial aspect, and I don't know if I touched on this further because I haven't read through these before I even shared them. I just read a couple. I was like, oh yeah, I want to share that. Maybe some of them will sound really stupid to me late now that I'm reading it, but so far I agree with them still. The process is not constructive; it's destructive. This goes back to an old analogy that I heard about how enlightenment is like peeling an onion. And there's a saying behind that which is layer upon layer you peel to find layer upon layer behind. And hopefully you get where I'm getting at with that metaphor, that every time you peel away a part, put another piece of the puzzle, or you unveil something, there's 10 more problems to be solved, or ideas to be understood, or secrets that you need to learn, whatever it might be. It seems like the more aware we become, the more we realize we don't know. And that ultimately comes down to the Socratic wisdom of Socrates being quoted as saying, not just that I think, therefore I am, but the greatest wisdom lies in knowing you know nothing. I believe that was Socrates, maybe Aristotle, who knows. But it's been repeated so many times through history. And all that means is that we all suffer from Dunning-Kruger effect at some point in our lives, which means the less you know, the more you think you know. And the more you discover about yourself and the world, if you're honest about it, the more you realize you really have no clue, and it's just more and more complex. It's like dendrites, dendritic patterns. I never thought of it that way. Dendrites are basically what you see in root systems or in lightning, to where it just continuously forks and branches out more and more, like, kind of chaos in action. And there's order within that chaos. Fractals, if you will. So, the next one is number 5. Beware of false prophets and idols who promise you the truth. I don't think that this one needs much explanation. I think by now everyone's seen 1,000 YouTube gurus and experts on health and fitness and mental and health and every single aspect of life. There's somebody out there telling you they know exactly what you need. And when I say false prophets and idols, I mean anyone who we look up to. It could be even our parents or our coach, or, God forbid, politicians or actors or musicians. They're just people. And every person is just an individual. They don't know any more or less than you do when it comes to the big picture. They may be more wise, or they might have more knowledge, but ultimately they cannot tell you what you need. Only you can determine that, but you have to become wise enough to determine that. So just don't get trapped in the paradigm of believing that this is the lifestyle I want. I want to be a hustler, and I want to go out and make a bunch of money because these guys look happy. Or the exact opposite. I want to be a Buddhist monk. I want to give everything away that I own and live happily in a cave meditating all day. Neither of these are conducive to most people's idea of what a real happy life is, which comes down to relationships and courage and experience and efforts, initiative taken on life, these things. So number 6, if you cannot share your discoveries or knowledge, then be wary and ask if it is truly useful. I'd have to ponder what I was thinking at the moment of making that, or writing that. But I suppose what I was saying is, don't assume that just because you know something or you think you know something, it's valuable. If it's something you have to hide away from other people, it's worth considering whether or not maybe you're just embarrassed because you know it's wrong with your subconscious. However, today, since I wrote this, things have changed a lot. For example, in the social media world, people are often can't share their discoveries because they'll be censored or kicked off a platform. So there are many reasons for doing so. But I mean, if you can't share with your closest friends and family your true feelings, then sometimes we need to do some self-analysis and ask ourselves why. Because even the most extreme views, if handled properly and explained properly, most people will accept them within us. But if people don't, often it could be the other people too. Some people just want to pick at others and to feel more important. So maybe sharing your discoveries, if you can't share a discovery, maybe we should not only look at what we can't share, but also the people who we're trying to share it with, because we need people who can be receptive to our thoughts. That could go both ways. Number 7, friends, family, and experiences should be an important discovery. And that can't be underscored enough times. I feel like if we don't have people in our life that accept us for who we are, at least one person, someone, then we can be driven into a pit of despair and misery. No matter how hard we work towards something, we could be a completely successful entrepreneur with millions of dollars and, fans and people, be famous, whatever it might be. But if you don't have close people, the people who can call you out on your bullshit, the people who can say, "Hi, I know you," the true you, I feel like people get really lost without that. And I think companionship is important because we need not just somebody to, that we can talk to, but somebody who can point out our bullshit to us. Somebody who can call us out truly, saying you can do better on this, or congratulations, you've done a great job on this, and therefore feel prideful or shamed when the time is right and improve ourselves. Because ultimately that's what we're doing all the time, whether we know it or not. We're trying to improve ourselves to be happier. Number 8, don't assume that you must be empty-minded to learn. Some tools, such as critical thinking, must be retained, though adjusted. And when I said empty-minded, I guess unless you've studied some of the Buddhist philosophies, you might not be aware that, meditation, the basic premise is to empty your thoughts. Whereas some people say, no, when I meditate, I focus on a specific thought. And people would say, well, what is meditation exactly, right? Is it sitting in a lotus position with your hands in a certain position? Does any of that really matter, or is all of it placebo? I firmly believe it's all placebo. I don't think there's a specific universally godly position to put your hands in or your feet or anything. Perhaps circulation, blood circulation is important, and certain, positions might give you better access to that. But in general, it comes down to meditation being specific to the individual and finding what works for them, and not assuming that you have to be empty-minded. We're always trying to conquer our racing thoughts. Sometimes those racing thoughts can benefit us. Be grateful that we have any thoughts at all, right? You can't quiet the inner mind for very long. And if you do, I feel like it might just shut down on us completely, because we always need to be thinking. We're getting there. Stick with me. Number 9, question everything, but realize that some truths are important to survival. What I meant by that is, we tend to, when we find out we've been lied to or we stop trusting people, we start to question every single thing we're told. This is, for example, what's happened with politics over the years, science now. Science is being questioned as to why is this published and not this? Why did you pull this just because it agrees with these people? It's much of the modern scientific community is completely biased, and the journals are one-sided and really don't give the full picture of what's going on because of the politics, human politics. You don't want to say anything about this group or that group, so therefore we can't talk honestly about certain things. And I think that because of this, we question all science now. We get to the point where in the modern day, in 2022, people are still saying the earth is flat, or there is no space, or the earth is hollow, whatever it might be. And maybe these things are true. I don't know, because I haven't been in the earth and I haven't been to space. But I have to make some assumptions about life. You can't be completely empty-minded and suspicious of everything. Otherwise, you have absolutely no basis to build your truth on. So letting go of everything and not believing is kind of an escape. It's a way to not take responsibility for saying, I know this is true. I know the grass is green outside. There's always an argument against it. Well, in the late summer, it's brown. At night, it doesn't have any color. More than one truth can be present at the same time. Number 10. I said number 9. It was question truths. Question everything, but some truths are important to survival. that can also have to do with like food, the medicines we take. If we think that something's good for us, some crazy treatment that might be have no basis in truth, maybe it will benefit us, maybe it won't. But surviving means we have to take care of ourselves, meaning we have to know when we're doing damage and be honest with ourselves, taking risks in so many ways. So number 10 is embrace your mortality for what it is and revel in your time to bloom on earth. That one's pretty self-explanatory as well. It means to conquer your fear of death and acknowledge that you're here for a short time and you better make the most of it. And that can be a scary proposition for a lot of people, but that's life. I could go on and on about discussions about mortality, but that would have been the end of the 10, but I have a few more on the second page here, and it says, number 11, don't dismiss the material realm. You're not above it, you are it. Your body cannot your body and mind cannot transcend the body-mind, meaning that there's a lot of discussions about consciousness leaving the body, many of these possibilities, things like astral projection or an afterlife, whatever it might be. A lot of people get really hung up on this because they so desperately want their consciousness to carry on after they're gone, which is completely understandable. And I have no arguments against this and no doubts that it's possible. But the important thing is a lot of folks in this mindset begin to dismiss this realm by saying, oh, well, this life is just a precursor. Or, the people who are so far into religion that they're like, oh, I'm just going to suffer this life. And flagellation, I think that's what it's called. And, people who self-harm because they think that God wants to punish them. And really, they say, if I do this in this life, then my next life will be better. Don't do that. Don't give away your moment right now on the whim that something better might come later. You have to make the most of the moment. And it's, I think, kind of an escape for some people, a way to feel like, well, I'm doing my best. But they're often following someone else's teachings, and that goes back to false idols. If you got to feel things in your heart, and some things just don't feel right. Self-punishment and mutilation in the name of God, that's preposterous. And you can't leave the body and still continue with the body-mind, which is the main point of that. Because the body and the mind are one, we know this. Therefore, your consciousness is going to change without your body to go along with it. Your eyeballs, the way that we see the world. That's a way of saying make the most of the moment. Number 12 is integration is the goal of life. In simple form, connections are universal. And I believe that maybe psychedelic experiences have really put this into perspective for me over the years. But seeing that everything is connected and that we really all are one, it's not something that can ever be written down. It can never be described. It can never be explained. And I've never heard anyone even try. The closest I hear is I've seen that we're all the same. And that means everything. That we all come from the same source. All plants, animals, fungi, we're all related. Everything. I was thinking earlier, we get so hung up on some of the trivial things. I thought earlier of how absurd it is that somewhere in the universe there's a star being born and a star exploding, right? Somewhere in our galaxy here, perhaps many. And at the same time, there's a Karen down in Florida somewhere screaming off of a dock at some kid because they have a lemonade stand without a permit. The small little trivialities that like we have to deal with as humans, how we can get ourselves so worked up over other people's lives and what we think is right and wrong because we're so blinded to our own truth that often people want to take it out on others and don't really think through how they feel. Integration, when I say integration, what I mean is integrity, comes from integration. Having integrity is often defined by some people as, being upstanding and, a good person. Integrity just means you can integrate into the society you are part of, by definition. So if you live in a cannibal society, integrity is going to mean you eat people. That's just how it goes. Anything else is, created in the mind of the person. Unless, of course, you believe that there is some external God or creator that tells us and gave us these commandments or what we should be doing. And that's up to the individual. So number 13 just says, awareness is fleeting, satori. It's an attachment to practices that can lead to errors in thinking. An attachment to practices means there are some people who follow the book. Certain Buddhists who believe this is what I should wear, this is how I should sit, goes back to the lotus position or anything else, or this is how you properly pay homage to God. You can't just go out and say, fuck yeah, universe, you're awesome. But I do. That's what I do. I talk to the universe, I talk to the woods, I speak as a friend, not as something beyond me, because I feel I am part of that God, the same creation, the same existence as everyone else. I'm not above or below anyone. I'm a tentacle of existence. Humans experiencing, the universe experiencing itself and seeing itself through our eyes. And satori, when I say awareness is fleeting, what I mean by that is a satori in, like say Buddhist tradition is considered like an awakening. It's what we would call an epiphany in the West. It's not enlightenment. It's what they would call maybe a mini enlightenment, which really is just enlightenment, because there is no, oh, I've achieved this state. I finally have, got all A's on my enlightenment test. It just doesn't exist. Awareness is fleeting in the sense that we might have an epiphany one day or a satori-like experience that just blows our mind. Oh my God, I can't believe I haven't thought about that before. And then it just fades away. We might even forget it. I can't tell you how many times I've had these crazy epiphanies and I try to write them down or record them, and some of them I have and they sound goofy later, but some of them I'm like, so glad I wrote that down. Where do they come from? They're things that we already know in our minds at all times, but we can only conjure them when they want to come forward, when the time is right. So in other words, the more times we put ourselves in situations where we might need to call on that, the more deep discussions we have, the more we listen to philosophy, the more that these things come forward and we start to go, aha, and start putting the pieces of the puzzle together. And at some point, something clicks in the person to say, none of this matters. Because enlightenment could be just a guy plowing his field and living in his cabin. He could have it all figured out and never have any layers of the onion to peel away in the first place, because we're assuming that people should achieve some point or status. So that's my discussion for the day. I guess this was a longer video than I anticipated, but epiphanies are fleeting. So don't identify with your awareness, but rather identify that you are awareness, that we are all awareness, and that we shine at different times. That it's like there's a spotlight shining around on the sand, and different pieces, different grains sparkle at different times depending on the angle of the light. And that's how I would see this universal consciousness or awareness or a creator, whatever it might be, passing around this light, and each person has their moment to go aha, and perhaps share that with other people. And if you're able to assimilate that knowledge into your life without hanging on to it and being hung up on the details, then you can realize you can do anything. You don't have to have a special crystal in your pocket. You don't have to move your hands to do any healing. You don't have to believe this or that. You can just be a slime blob moving through the cracks and figuring out what fits best. Guess that doesn't really work, does it? A slime blob. But hey, I already said it, so we're all slime blobs now. So another final note here, and something I wrote, is that we cannot unsee truth, but we can always rethink what truth is. And at different times of the day, we have different feelings. We can't expect to always feel good. We have to be able to acknowledge and have that emotional intelligence to understand that we'll feel better later. And usually we do. And you can't always force yourself to want to meditate or do yoga or anything. It's like you've got to feel it. It's just got to be natural. And which brings me, I guess, to the Dalai Lama. So, whoops. Right at the end, I knocked my camera over like an idiot. The Dalai Lama is what I guess if people wanted to speak about enlightenment, anyone out there who disagrees with my assessment and says, no, there is a certain state of being, that is considered enlightened, I would say that it'd be hard to argue that someone like the Dalai Lama would be considered on the top of the list. And anyone who's ever listened to him speak knows that he's the most curious, funny, and interesting guy, that completely different than what you might expect when you see a picture of the guy. He laughs, he loves funny stuff, he likes watching shows, he likes tinkering with he loves the computer, he loves the internet, and he has cars brought out there and he works on old cars. This is the kind of thing you might see from any American, because he doesn't dismiss his interests just because they might not fit in line with a certain style. He knows that it doesn't matter. Curiosity is like a beacon for many of us. It's like the curator of creation. The more curious you are, the more you want to explore it. So that's my long way of saying that we're all enlightened in our own way. And if you're the kind of person who's trying to achieve some state of enlightenment, just realize that it's ever present. You just have to strip away the layers. So I want to thank today's sponsor, your mom, and I'll tell her you said hi. Peace.